American treasures that haven't been found. Over the centuries, people have discovered countless treasures of days past around the world. Every year, archaeologists, fortune hunters, and everyday folks find out or accidentally come across some valuable stuff. However, even with all the time that has passed, there are treasures supposedly located in the United States that have yet to be found. Number 14. Mosbys Treasure. Colonel John Singleton Mosby fought for the Confederate Army during the American Civil War. He was very well respected during his time, leading the 43rd Battalion through many raids that they have achieved in no time at all. His Virginia cavalry was known as Mosby's Raiders or Mosby's Rangers. In 1863, after one of his successful raids, Mosby acquired the riches that belonged to General Edwin H. Stoughton.
This collection included silver, gold, jewelry, and family heirlooms that totaled to a value of $350,000.
However, he didn't enjoy his new treasure because the Union troops were close by. Mosby and a sergeant buried the stolen items near the Fairfax County Courthouse and marked it with an X. Mosby and his men were able to leave the area without encountering the Union soldiers. Later, when Mosby sent his men to retrieve the treasure, they were all captured by the enemy. In the end, Mosby was never reunited with his loot. Number 13. The Lost Alamo Treasure. What do most people know about Alamo? We know that it was Texas's fight for independence from Mexico, and that we are never supposed to forget it. Let's go through a refresher in case history class was a really long time ago for you. The Alamo, also known as the Mission San Antonio de Valero, is the Catholic mission where the 1836 battle took place. Texas only had 188 men on their side, while the Mexican army of Santa Anna had 6,000. When the gunpowder and dust cleared, Texas was triumphant. The treasure's purpose was to fund the Texan fighters, worth millions. It was named the San Saba Treasure, and it disappeared after the Alamo battle. Experts say it was likely that the Mexican army seized the treasure and brought it back to Mexico, though others believe it is still near the mission's grounds. A few years ago, historical researcher and fortune hunter Frank Bouchier started a project to evacuate the part of Alamo he thought the treasure was buried. He and his team didn't find anything. Number 12. Victorio Peak. In the Hembrillo Basin in New Mexico is the rocky hill called Victorio Peak. During the Battle of 1880 between the U.S. 9th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers and Chief Victorio's Apaches, Victorio used this peak as one of many hideouts. In 1937, a deer hunter named Doc Noss found himself near the hill in search for fresh water. What he came across instead was an old ladder that led into a maze of tunnels. He climbed down the ladder and into a cavern that contained one thing, an old wooden chest. On the outside were the words, "Sealed Silver," in Old English. Once he bought the land, Doc Noss took 200 gold bars from the cave. Back then, it was illegal to own gold that wasn't jewelry. He hid the bars all over the area so that he wouldn't have to give it up. The cavern collapsed after an attempt to widen the entrance with explosions, which obliterated any chance of reaching the rest of the treasure.
When Noss passed away a few years later, his family was not able to inherit the land because the U.S. took back ownership of it.
Number 11. Montezumas Treasure. Montezuma was the leader of the Aztecs, who lived during 1466 to 1520. He was killed during the first waves of the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire. A lot of historians believe that he owned an immense fortune that was hidden by his subjects during the battle with Juan Cortez's men. That means jewels that are worth an ungodly amount of money are now somewhere to be found because the Aztecs wanted to keep it away from the Spanish. Where did the stockpile go? Many treasure hunters think it made its way to Utah. In 1914, a prospector named Freddie Crystal noticed that the treasure map that supposedly leads to Montezuma's collection looks a lot like a cliff in Utah. Crystal convinced many locals to help him look for the treasure, but neither Crystal nor any townspeople dug up anything substantial. Number 10. The Shawnee Silver Mines of Ohio. The Shawnee tribe is originally from Oklahoma and is sometimes referred to as the Loyal Shawnee after they fought alongside the Union during the Civil War. Another thing they were known for is their legendary stock of silver. Prisoners of the Shawnee from the white settlements in Kentucky and Ohio were blindfolded and instructed to carry heavy sacks from one area to several Shawnee villages. The prisoners claimed the Shawnee forced them to carry silver. One clue to their location was the sound of a stream not too far from the original site. Since everyone was blindfolded, no one in the white population of America knew where the silver came from. Number 9. The Shawnee Mines Part 2. This next story comes from the Journal of John Swift, a British sailor. He wrote that he and a former Shawnee captive, George Mundy, searched and found 3 Shawnee mines. They located the caverns by following what Swift calls a great ridge in the southwest direction. There, they mined silver while trying to avoid contact with Shawnee tribe members. In 1796, Swift claims that he and Mundy buried silver worth up to 22 to 30,000 English crowns. Back then, 1 English crown meant an ounce of silver. The two hid the silver under a big beech tree, though they did not specify which or exactly where. As a result, people since then have been looking in places like Virginia and West Virginia to Kentucky and Pennsylvania. Number 8. William Kidd's Treasure. His full name is William Kidd, though most people know him better as Captain Kidd. This Scottish sailor first hunted down pirates and then eventually became one himself, or so the story goes. He was appointed to lead an expedition to seek out pirates, operating on the Indian Ocean. His crew eventually overtook a vessel that they renamed the Adventure Prize.
It was around this time that he learned the government considered him a pirate and were trying to capture him.
He was eventually taken back to New York and then sent for trial to England. Kidd was charged with piracy by Parliament and ultimately paid with his life. Historians debate his guiltiness, and many see the charges laid against him as mere accusations. Though the court questioned Kidd on where his treasure was, Kidd didn't say a word, and with him went the secret of where the Adventure Prize valuables are. Number 7. The Lufthansa Heist. For this next one, we fast forward to the 1970s. It was one of the biggest heists of the century took place, planned by Jimmy Burke of the Lucchese crime family. The incident was dubbed the Lufthansa Heist and referred to the robbery at the JFK airport in December of that year. The mob stole an estimated $5.87 million. Today, that is worth $22.6 million. Most of that loot was in the form of cash, with the remaining $875,000 of it being jewelry. You might have heard of the heist before. The television films The Big Heist and The $10 Million Getaway were both based on this robbery. It pops up as a plot point in Goodfellas as well. No one knew where the money went, at least no one who was living anymore or dared to say anything about it. In 2014, a former mob member said that Burke placed the money in a safety deposit box and that Burke's daughter had the keys. However, as far as the public knows, authorities never found it. Number 6. The Thomas Beale Ciphers. Thomas J. Beale lived during the 19th century. In 1822, he delivered a box to his friend Robert Morris, an innkeeper from Lynchburg, Virginia. Beale instructed Morris never to open the box unless he or one of his men did not return after 10 years. A month after this initial meeting, Beale told Morris that a friend would mail a key that deciphered the messages, but no such key ever arrived. Inside the box were the Beale ciphers, or Beale papers, a set of 3 notes. One text lists the names of the treasure's owners and next of kin. The other one discloses the location. Both remain unsolved.
The only solved text is the one that describes the content of the treasure, which consists of gold, silver, gemstones, and more.
Number 5. Treasure at Little Bighorn. George Armstrong Custer, better known as General Custer, was an Army officer and cavalry commander for the Union during the American Civil War and American Indian War. The circumstance of his death was a significant moment in history since it took place during a skirmish known as the Battle of Bighorn, also called Custer's Last Stand. With Custer's passing also came the burial of a treasure worth $375,000, consisting mainly of gold bars. The money was being transported by Captain Grant Marsh, who was to ride a steamboat west to help resupply Custer and his men. When Marsh heard of Custer's defeat and realized he would also have to carry injured men on the boat, he took the gold bars off the ship and hid it so they wouldn't weigh down the vessel. Marsh left the bars somewhere along the Bighorn River in Montana. Number 4. Gorder's Gold. The California gold rush took place between 1848 to 1855. Over 300,000 prospectors were part of the phenomenon, flocking to California from all over the world. One of these people was the Frenchman named Henry Gordierr. After finding a sizable amount of gold, Gordier knew he no longer wanted to keep mining. In 1857, he purchased land in Honey Lake Valley, California, and lived out his days as a rancher. Then, all of a sudden, he disappeared, and 3 strange men occupied the house instead. They told everyone that Gordier went back to France, but when Gordier's body turned up in the Susan River, police arrested the men. 2 were hanged, 1 vanished. With that last man went Gordier's $40,000 worth of gold, which now would be worth over $1.1 million. Number 3. Forrest Fenn's Hidden Trove. Forrest Fenn was an author, art dealer, and former pilot. After he retired from the United States Air Force, he became interested in owning art galleries and eventually opened Fenn Galleries with his wife. They later sold the gallery after Fenn's retirement. When he became terminally ill, Fenn decided to hide a chest full of jewelry, gemstones, rare coins, and gold nuggets. He told everyone that he would hide the container somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. To give you an idea how vast that area is, the Rocky Mountains span from British Columbia and Alberta, then through Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. As a result, not one soul has been able to recover Fenn's treasure. Number 2. The Lost Dutchman. Jacob Waltz was a German immigrant who lived between 1810 and 1891. He is the sole person who knows the location of a rich gold mine sitting somewhere in the southwestern United States. That mine was misleadingly named the Lost Dutchman's Mine.
Most fortune hunters believe that this cave full of gold is somewhere in the Suspicion Mountains near Phoenix, Arizona.
One popular theory that the mine belonged to members of the Apache tribe and that they awarded the gold to a man named Dr. Thorne, who treated ailing Apache members. Though this is an exciting story, historians say it is highly unlikely. Number 1. Leon Trabuco's Gold. It was 1933 in Farmington, New Mexico. A pilot known as Red Mosier landed in the desert to bring Mexican millionaire Lian Trabuco an enormous amount of gold. Mosier made a total of 16 trips to bring gold to New Mexico to transport the gold to Trabuco and his men. At the time, Trabuco and 4 other men were buying gold from Mexican reserves in U.S. soil, intending to resell the gold later once the price went up. Keep in mind that this took place at a time of the Great Depression in America. The cost of gold rose higher and higher, but Trabuco and his partners decided to hold off on selling it in case it went even higher.
Eventually, they could not sell the gold because the Gold Act was still intact.
This law declared that it was illegal to own pure gold in the U.S. Trabuco passed away before he could sell the gold, and the location of the cache was buried with him. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. For more videos like this, subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss an upload.